Dickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Okay, you'll give us just a second.
Yeah, we better kind of hold off for here.
I'm here.
Okay, and so where's, there she is, yeah, there she is. Okay.
Commissioner Allen, can you hear us?
I can. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Clear.
Very good. Good. Thank you.
Our invocation today will be delivered by one of our Tarrant County chaplains, Chaplain Frank Lidke. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Shall we pray? Father, we thank you for what you provide for us. Lord, you tell us that where there is no counsel, the people fail, but in the multitude of counsels, there is safety. So I pray, Lord, as you said, if we ask for wisdom, you would give it to us. So I ask for wisdom, Lord, for our leaders here, the commissioners, the judge. I pray that you would lead and guide them. Thank you, Lord, for their concern for our community. We pray your blessing on them. Pray your blessing on this day. We ask, Lord, that you would protect our officers that are in the jail. Lord, those that folks in our county who had COVID, we pray that we would pray for their healing. Lord, we pray for the officer's family that we recently lost. We pray your comfort and peace on him, on them. Lord, we ask that you would continue to help and bless our country as we go through this difficult time. We pray, Lord, that our nation and country would come back together. We thank you for this time. We pray your blessing on it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thanks, Frank. Manius.
Court members, we have several announcements as it relates to the agenda this morning. We'll start on the administrator section. Item 9A11. That item will be taken up after closed today. Under facilities management, which is item 9F3. This is a professional engineering services contract with Compost Engineering. We're going to ask that that be held for at least 1 week. Under human resources, item 9G5. This is civil service status and title change in the criminal court administration. We're going to ask that that also be held until after closed. And then under public health, item 9J9, it's an agreement with eClinical Works. We're going to remove that from the agenda. Also under facilities, item 9F3. Oh, I believe we did mention that already. I apologize. I believe that's all that we have as it relates to those items that we're going to delay or we're going to remove from the agenda. Do have several other announcements. Your Honor, members of the court, we have 3 public hearings this morning. Also, as you've gone through the agenda this week, you've noticed that it is extremely long. And so there are certain things that I would like to take out of order. Basically, some things first before we get into the public health presentation, simply because there are people in the audience that we can deal with these agenda items, and there would be no need for them to stay unless they really desire to stay. And so as we get into the administrator section, we are going to move around before we bring Dr. Tenasia up to do his presentation.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 15th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, Commissioner Fickus, Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Allen, I believe you have a memorial resolution and maybe a couple of other comments to make at this time.
I do. Thank you, Judge. First, I just wanted to recognize the passing of Chief Justice Ginsburg. I know that we had flags throughout our county buildings that were flown at half staff, and I just asked that we would adjourn the meeting in her honor. I know that regardless of whether folks agreed with all of her opinions or not, she certainly was an inspiration to many, and so we certainly want to honor her in that way. Then next, I wanted to mention the deadline to complete the census is September 30th at 11:59 p.m. So as of a communication that my office sent out last week, Tarrant County had just under 70% self-completion rate, which is a great number, but we certainly want to make sure that every single person in our county is counted. Of course, those census results determine congressional seat apportionment, federal funding, and so much more. So you can complete that online or via phone. Really important reminders, as we know that some folks will use the census for nefarious reasons, but the census will never ask for personal identification numbers, credit card or bank account information, monetary donations, or politically affiliated contributions. So again, the deadline to complete the census is September 30th. Next, another deadline is the deadline to register to vote for the general election is next week, and actually before our next court meeting. So wanted to be sure to encourage everyone, if you have not yet registered to vote, and please be sure to register to vote by October 5th. And then lastly, I did want to recognize a Precinct 2 constituent and an active member and leader in the faith and greater community, Reverend Ernest Sargent. I did not work with him personally, even as a commissioner, even prior to my time in office, but I did know members of his family, and he really devoted his life in service. And so I do want to read this resolution into the record. Whereas the family, friends, and colleagues of Reverend Ernest C. Sargent III were deeply saddened by his death on September 13, 2020. And whereas his passing is a heartbreaking loss of a devoted husband and father and a highly respected and well-loved spiritual leader who touched the lives of so many, and he will be remembered for his compassion, friendly personality, and passion for helping others. Whereas the Reverend was born on September 12, 1957 in Navasota, Texas, to Ernest and Dorothy Sargent. Whereas he was a gifted athlete and received a scholarship to Sam Houston State University, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice in 1979, and he also studied at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And whereas Ernest Sargent was a peace officer for 20 years, 15 of which were with the Arlington Police Department, and he was a pastor of the Star of Bethlehem Sanctuary in Arlington for 25 years. And whereas he was also a published author with a great passion for research and writing, and in his years of investigative experience as a police officer, contributed to his nothing but the facts approach. And whereas Reverend Sargent is survived by his loving wife of 41 years, Elaine, his children, Stephen, John, Joanna, and Destiny, and his mother, Dorothy, and a host of other relatives and friends. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, pay tribute to the memory of a caring man with a servant's heart and extend our deepest sympathy to the members of his family, loved ones, and friends for their great loss. in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 29th day of September 2020. And with that, I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a
Thank
second.
you.
Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We are going to, as Commissioner Allen suggested, close today in memory of Justice Ginsburg. I do want to say, and I'm not going to give any names yet because I just found out about this morning and don't know from a HIPAA standpoint whether we need to do it or not, but we did have a 20-year employee for the county that passed away with COVID-19 over the weekend, and so we need to keep individuals within the county who have got the COVID-19, as well as really all folks, in our prayers as we move forward with that. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you've got an event coming up.
We do. This Friday, we have Empowering Seniors, and this is our 12th annual. And this year it's a little different. We're going online with a virtual Empowering Seniors, and we're going to have some great guests that are going to be with us, and they'll be like Neil Sperry and hopefully new Hall of Fame member, hopefully, Drew Pearson, Ruth Buzzy from Laugh In, Troy Dungan, David Finfrock, Bobby Wygant, Bob Tallman, the announcer at the Fat Stock Show and Rodeo, Jerry Reynolds, the car pro, and Scott Murray. So we're going to have a great time. We've got door prizes. We're going to have online bingo for door prizes, not for money. So anyway, it's going to be a great time. It's going to be Friday morning starting at 10 o'clock. And to register, go on www.empoweringseniors.com and come and join with us. It's going to be fun. Thanks.
Just FYI,
Yes.
David Finfrock was bitten by a rattlesnake
I know,
yesterday.
but he's okay.
He's okay, but
How's the snake doing?
Snake died. That's
Yeah, well, not going there.
that's serious stuff.
Yeah, it is. Court members, is there anything else anybody has at this time? Okay, court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have, I guess, 3 public hearings today, and we will take care of those now. Come on down.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Wayne Pollard. I am the director of the Housing Assistance Program. Tarrant County Housing Assistance Office served about 3,200 families monthly on our Housing Choice Voucher Program, otherwise known as Section 8. We have 960 private landlords who provide rental assistance for our families. We are on a major push to help our families move to higher opportunity areas. We have 11,000 families on our Section 8 wait list. For 11 consecutive years, we have been rated as high performers by HUD. The audit this year, we had no findings. We have implemented a call center using our current resources to better communicate with our landlords and our program participants. Our entire office workflow is paperless. We've been paperless since 2015. All documents that come into our office are scanned in within 48 hours. We have an online portal that we use for our participants and our applicants. When they apply, they can apply online. Our current participants are able to make changes in our system, income changes, adding new family members, and that has helped a lot, especially during the pandemic since they couldn't come to the office. We have offered 3 mentoring programs, 2 of them for youth, boys and girls, and 1 for young adults, 18 to 24 years old. We offer monthly classes to our zero-income families to help them be prepared for jobs, interviewing skills, build self-esteem, budgeting, and being good neighbors. We will face some challenges this year. We still need additional vouchers. Again, all of our vouchers come from HUD. We still get about 23 calls a day or emails from Tarrant County citizens seeking housing assistance. We are seeing a significant increase in our housing assistance payment each month. In January, we were paying out $1.7 million per month. Now we're at $2.1 million per month. So we need to keep a close eye of that until the end of the year. And we believe it's two causes from that. COVID, a lot of our families lost income, either got reduced income or they lost their jobs. And also landlords are increasing rents a great deal. It's going to be interesting after all the moratorium for eviction ends, how it's going to affect our families. We are encouraging our families to pay their rent, the ones who can. We are covering a lot of families' rents, but I know a lot of landlords are very frustrated with the system, and many of them are not renewing some of our families' rents, or they no longer accept Section 8. We continue to recruit landlords in high opportunity areas. At this time, we're not seeking any court action. We'd just like to have a public hearing, please.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. Appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing. Thank you very much, Wayne. Our next item. Yeah.
So the next public hearing deals with the annual plan for the preservation and restoration of records archives in the county clerk's office. Ms. Nichols.
So we're asking the court to approve our 2021 fiscal preservation and restoration plan. We have provided for you the goals and things we're looking to accomplish. So I'd like to ask for your approval and open this up for discussion if we need to.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. Wilder, are you getting up to speak, or are you just getting up?
Next in line here, I believe.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing and ask the court for any action it'd like to take.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilder?
Judge and members of the court, we also ask approval for the district clerk archives project and special budgets. We are making substantial progress in quite a number of areas. I sent a report to the budget officer last night, and if the email is back up and running, I assume she got it. We, as you know, have had some email problems, at least Microsoft has, but we find that this will really enhance Tarrant County's historical archive, which is so valuable given the rich history of Fort Worth and Tarrant County. So we ask your approval for our plan for this budget year.
This time I'll open a public hearing and ask if anyone is here wishing to speak to this matter. There being none, then I will close the public hearing and ask the court for its action.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, as we spoke of as we began this meeting, there's some items that I would like to take out of order. They're in the county administrator section, and if we could go to them first. We have people in the audience that once we deal with this, they may not wish to stay for the remainder of the court. The first one deals with item number 4, Action concerning the JPS Healthcare or Health Network 2018 Capital Improvement Program. You might recall that on September 14th, a little over 2 weeks ago, we met in a work session, and the Commissioners Court heard presentations from 4 different companies relating to this proposed contract. I have provided you a court communication at the dais, and also members of the court, Commissioner Allen and Commissioner Johnson. I think we emailed those to you this morning, 2 different emails. There was a scoring process that was after the conclusion of the presentations, and with the scores that we received, we calculated those. We received scores from all the court members. It was an informal scoring, and with that being said, we're recommending that the Commissioners Court direct the Tarrant County Hospital District Board of Managers to begin contract negotiations with Broadus Lewis for program management services concerning the district's 2018 capital improvement program.
I move approval of the Commissioners for the Commissioners Court to direct the Tarrant County Hospital District Board to begin contract negotiations with Broadus Lewis for program management services concerning the district's 2018 capital improvement program.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I would like to encourage them as they begin that process to include Mr. Phillips from Tarrant County and as a part of that as we go forward. So I don't, that's up to them to actually do it or not, but I would encourage them to do that.
Yeah, Judge, also I wanted to add that I know that that you all, my colleagues, were prepared to vote on this 2 weeks ago, and I had asked that we delay it, and I'm sure that we all took the same amount of energy and effort in making our decisions and scoring, and it was especially important for me to do that given the huge ramifications of this project and what it means for our county and for access to healthcare for our residents, and then additionally the return on the investment for our taxpayers. So I will say that it was a difficult decision for me because there were multiple of the 4 applicants. There were a lot of good suggestions, recommendations, presentations. And every applicant brought something really strong to the table. I will say that for Broadus, that I look forward to working with you all, and we are in the process of forming our Precinct 2 Advisory Committee that will serve as community leaders that are passionate about access to health care, that are practitioners or that just are community members, are JPS patients, that look forward to working with you all through this process. I think I've been really clear about how important I think that it is that we communicate to our community about the progress of this bond. We would not even be here if it was not for their support of it back in 2018. And that with every step of the way, every opportunity where it's appropriate, that we get community input, because this project is for the community. And so with that, I just, again, want to thank all the applicants and for their strong efforts, and also look forward to engaging the Precinct 2 advisory team as we move forward. Thank you.
Any other comments? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we can go to...
I do want to thank everybody, because I know many of the folks are in the room, and it was, all the presentations were very good. As Commissioner Allen said,
each of you brought special things to the table, and it was a very difficult decision. So I know this has been long in coming, and we appreciate the commitment that all of y'all have made and the time that you committed to this, and we really want to tell you how much we appreciate that. Thank you.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 12 under the county administrator section. This concerns the renewal of a delinquent tax collection contract with Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court enter into a renewal agreement for tax collection services between Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Simpson.
Sampson.
Sir?
Sampson.
In Tarrant County for a 5-year period, which would end December 31st, 2025. Just a comment on this: all the necessary paperwork has been posted as required by the statutes, and we're recommending approval.
I move approval.
I'll second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
I'm abstaining.
Commissioner Fickus? Abstain. Commissioner Johnson?
Abstain.
Motion passes 2-0-3.
Members of the court, if we could now move to item 13 under the administrator section. This concerns the Tarrant County 911 Emergency Assistance District. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve Tarrant County 911 Emergency Assistance District's proposed 2021 budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if now we could go, and we're going to go to the briefing item. This concerns an update on health-related issues. Dr. Tenasia is here to address the court at this time. As Vince comes up, I might just make one mention. As we go into comments from the public as it relates to this or any other item that we have in court today, we now are the proud possessor of a time clock that is below this, so whenever we get to the 3-minute mark, there's going to be a buzzer that goes off, and so just want to make sure that you all realize what that buzzer means.
Did you hear that, Vinny?
Yes, sir, I do. Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the court. I have an update for you on the emerging health issues. First slide is the West Nile data, and I think this is going to be the last week we'll address this because the data is coming down beautifully. The cold weather pattern and the rain event really helped us out. And I want to thank you again for at least allowing us the option to have aerial spraying. But as you can see, we're driven by data, and we did not need to go ahead and do it at this time. So we're very fortunate that Mother Nature helped us out get this data down. We have about 20 cases of human cases of West Nile, and we do expect some more this season because of the high activity that we saw. But so far, things are slowing down. So unless something changes, I will delete these slides and not bring them back going forward. Situational awareness for COVID. So today's sort of a historic day for many reasons. First of all, global case count for deaths is now at 1 million deaths. So that's a somber reminder that this disease that's brand new, only 7 months old or so, has made record number of deaths across the world, 33 million cases. U.S. cases today are at 7.1 million and 205,000 deaths. Texas at 740,000 cases, I think 15,500 and some change on deaths, and then 6.7 million tests conducted. Out of that, 388,000 in Tarrant County. And as you can see, they have cleaned up their data. Now there's a unknown county portion. They don't have that county unassigned area. So unknown counties at 111,000, so I'm sure there's some more coming our way as well. Tarrant County cases, again, a somber reminder that today is the day we cross 50,000 cases in Tarrant County. Today's number are going to be around 498, I think I looked at this morning, new cases. So we are seeing a little bit of a bump after Labor Day. As you can see, the data has been consistently up, but it's not a major spike like what we were seeing past Memorial Day or around 4th of July. Seems to be a slow but persistent increase in activity. So definitely there's a trend change that we're observing at this point. 657 deaths, I believe, this morning total. I think we had another 3 or 4 to report, and 43,000 or more recovered. So that's the update for Tarrant County. There are some new efforts that we're trying to incorporate into our fight against COVID, and as the situation evolves, we're trying to evolve with it. As you all heard, our concerns and frustrations about testing capabilities and the expansion and access to testing, we've launched a new at-home testing pilot. Last week, I think we tried it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I think we had about 50 or so people that participated in this effort, and we're going to try it out for the next couple of weeks how it goes. Very limited capability. We're doing about 50 a day just to make sure we don't break the system, but the plan is to have it available all 7 days of the week. And the reason is, if you look to the right on the little chart that we have for our testing platform, 29,000 people have gotten appointments, but there were a lot more people that were qualified, 41,000. And for a variety of reasons, they chose not to get an appointment or couldn't go to an appointment. And many things happen along the way. You go screen, and then you get the choice of appointments. And either the time doesn't work out, or the location doesn't work out, or there were no appointments. So to cover all of those gaps, we're trying to add this at-home testing model to see how well it works. There are risks in there. It's a self-conducted test, so the collection of the sample may go wrong and you may not get good results. That's definitely a possibility. And the other risk is that, we prepay for these kits. People may think they want to do it, they take it home, and then they're like, yeah, okay, I don't want to do it, I want to go somewhere else. So you end up losing that money. So we're trying it in a very limited fashion, but it does cover that gap of not having testing available or, the time or location's not convenient. So that's, a pilot. We'll study it for a couple of weeks and we'll bring back to you how well it went. For now, we have a lab that we work with. You all heard the saliva testing folks. We are sending those kits out. But we also have on the agenda an item to discuss about another home testing company. It's called Let's Get Checked. So once we have your approval, we'll probably add that to the toolkit for at-home testing as well. Second thing that we launched or are going to be launching today is a new self-reporting tool. There's a variety of reasons for it. One of the biggest ones was our frustrations with the delays in data coming back to public health. We know that people have gone and gotten testing done, and sometimes we hear from them first on the phone, and then we're chasing after their test results, and they're stuck somewhere in the queue, either at a lab or through DSHS or another entity, and we get those in a delayed fashion. So to overcome that, this constant lag of not knowing what the test results are, we're launching a self-reporting tool today. And, we encourage the public, if you have gone somewhere and gotten tested and got a result back, go ahead and report yourself as a case. And all we ask is you take a PDF, a screenshot, a photo on your phone, however you want to do it, and load the test result there. And we put you ahead in the queue to do contact tracing with you. Because what we want to do is increase our efficiency and speed in getting the contact tracing done. While the case volume is manageable, it does have a big impact. When case volume shoots up, it gets a little hard to get to all of those folks, so we want to make sure we manage it right at this point. And then the final thing is we're seeing a shift happen in the beginning of the pandemic, testing was limited to these large laboratories with PCR testing. Now there's a lot of push, and testing has evolved to point of care testing. Those systems don't always produce a written result or an electronic lab feed. They're more a conversation with the doctor or the point of care test site. Hey, this machine is showing you have a positive result. But there's no printout, there's no electronic data feed, so it depends on the people to actually fill in some information and send it to us. So this tool makes it available to those folks and also to the person who got tested, that they can, self-report as well. And finally, as you heard, the big push from the federal government about at-home testing, the Abbott rapid test, if that becomes a reality, the system does allow to actually take a photo of that test and load it in. Abbott did add a QR code on their test kit where you can report that test as well, and we will eventually get it from Abbott. But we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve and make sure that we have avenues available for people to report, and so we can do contact tracing appropriately and faster than waiting for those results to show up through a traditional method. And then finally, we are also sort of reinvigorating and calling out a issue. As you all heard me say last time, about 47% of our people in the county that tested positive for one reason or the other did not respond to the call. We were unable to get to them. And this is a nationwide trend. About half of the folks that have had COVID-19 across the country have not responded to public health for the contact tracing efforts. So Tarrant County is launching a campaign, and it models after the CDC campaign. It's answer the call. When public health calls you and you know that either you're positive as a case or you were a contact, your friends or family or somebody is tested positive, please answer that call, because it is very, very important that we all participate in this effort to reduce the spread of COVID-19. And there are 2 or 3 things. There is a system that we use called Everbridge. It's a emergency management and notification system. People are used to getting alerts about a variety of things in their cities, water main break or city election or local mosquito spraying or any other emergency through a text message or a phone call. We're using the same system to get a message out and encouraging people to either fill out an online survey or make a phone call to our hotline and ask to be talk to a contact tracer, or get a call back from a contact tracer. All those can be indicated on that text message or on the phone call as choices. So please look at that. Most of the time, the caller ID on that would be the hotline number, the 817-248-6299. Sometimes, depending on your carrier, a lot of these bulk calling systems get tagged as spam call. So it may show up as a spam call, but it's really not. So I just wanted to make sure I point that out. And then yes, sir.
Do you leave a voicemail message?
Yes, sir. It does leave a voicemail message to call a number back, the hotline number back for public health. And it does follow up on a text message as well if it's a cell phone. And then final thing is that we have another system called Sarah Alert, which we've been using, and it's a contact monitoring system. The way it's supposed to work is that if we find a case, we talk to them, we develop their contact list, we talk to those folks about their instructions on what they're supposed to do. And many folks are just fine. They're not ill, but they need to be monitored on a routine basis to make sure that they don't forget that they are still to isolate and quarantine for 14 days, report any symptoms. And this system makes it easy. It sends an automated message every day, and you can respond to that message. And if something changes in your health status, it alerts our contact tracer. Then we follow up. Okay, now you're starting to develop symptoms. Let's get you tested. Did you stay isolated? So we go through all of those things. So this is a full package of answering the call. The idea being that we need technology and we need the help of people to actually get through this contact tracing effort, so we can put a lid on COVID-19. So that's some new and expanded efforts in Tarrant County. I just wanted to share that with you. Your Honor, you had a question?
The 14 days, we've had some discussions, and I get a number of times where people say, golly, I'm feeling much better. what's the alternative to, what in your mind is an alternative to the 14 days? What would you want to see before somebody were to go back before the 14 days?
So there's two things. The feeling better comment, let me kind of catch on that. So there are people who are ill with COVID-19. So their isolation period is 10 days. And the reason is, by 10 days, most people tend to recover. Now, some may have a lingering viral cough that happens. I mean, that can last for weeks. But what CDC has said, that if you tested positive for COVID from the day of onset, let's get to 10 days. And if your fever is broken for 24 hours and you're not having to use any fever-reducing medication and your symptoms are generally improving, you're free to go after 10 days, resume normal activities, just wear a mask, stay distant from others like everybody else is supposed to. And if you are an asymptomatic person, where you just tested positive but never had any symptoms, let's start on the day of the positive test, go the full 10 days, and then you're free to go. On the contacts, people who are exposed as a close contact, somebody who was within 6 feet of this individual who tested positive, the isolation and quarantine period is 14 days. And the reason for that is it can take as short as 2 days or as long as 14 days for somebody to develop the illness, whether they get it with symptoms or without symptoms. So there's no real out. What we do know is that at day 5 or 6, a majority of people do start to fall ill. So what we've done is target date for testing, 5 to 6 days from exposure. That gets you a good idea of whether you have it or not. We don't have the testing resources to keep testing people for 14 days or do another test at the end of 14 days. So we still recommend, regardless of test results, isolation for 14 days, because that's, you could be the unlucky one, and we've seen it, where a person got ill on day 13 or 14 of their exposure. On day 5 or 6, they were negative. So there's really no good out of that 14 days at this point. Yes, sir. I know, that's not the answer, but yes, sir, that's the science.
Well, I understand the science, and I think the balance of that science is 14 days is a long time to stay out of work if you're living paycheck to paycheck.
That is correct.
And I think we've got to, I don't know, we're going to have to look at some, maybe alternate plan or at least some other way that if, again, no symptoms, maybe a negative test. And I understand that I can test negative today and tomorrow I can be positive.
Yes, sir.
But
and right on the box or the label that comes with the test, it indicates on each and every one of those that a negative test does not rule out COVID-19. A positive one rules it in.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Okay. So situational awareness for U.S., as I said, 7.1 million cases and 205,000 deaths. The chart that I wanted to point out is we've had a significant decline over the last couple months in our COVID cases. But as you can see, right around Labor Day, things did start to perk up again across the country. So we're in a slow rising uptrend. So it's not a downtrend anymore. It's a clear uptrend across the country. Texas, it has been going down, but as you can see over the last 14 days, it's sort of flattened out. So we're seeing an impact from Labor Day. Luckily, we're not seeing a spike upwards, but it is having an impact on what's happening in Texas as well. And then there are states that are just experiencing what I would call explosive outbreaks. South Dakota, North Dakota are certainly experiencing that. Wisconsin is another one that I wanted to point out. They have had issues related to bars reopening and colleges reopening, and all of those college towns started to experience outbreaks that have now spilled out into the general community. So a lot has happened. They tried to lock down colleges after that happened, but the bars remained open. So off-campus activities are hard to control, and the entire country is watching what's happening in Wisconsin because they are just at the brink of a major situation if they can't get it under control. So, like I said, Texas situation is improving, but flatlined. Hopefully we keep it at flat or further declines. The top chart is the cases, and the bottom chart is the deaths. And then here's a school situation, and that's where things are a little, maybe this is probably something that's adding into the flatlining. So schools in Texas opened, various time frames, but the earliest ones opened like end of July. I think 27th of July was the first schools that opened. Not everybody's back on campus. About 1.1 million students and 800,000 staff are back, so that's about 1.9 million people total. And we've had 6,773 cases reported in just 1 month. That's a huge number. And what's even more important, last week there were 4,500 cases. So that's a jump of 2,273 in 1 week. That's a 50% increase. And the denominator has not increased yet, but you'll see that denominator change because now larger school districts are opening this week in Tarrant County. Arlington ISD opened this week to a hybrid learning model. Fort Worth slowly starting to phase in different type of learning. So we're going to start to see some changes occur in Tarrant County and across Texas as well. Positivity rate, on the other hand, is doing good. We're at 6.15%. And I only kept the yellow line because that's a comparable to how we calculate positivity rate here in Tarrant County. Tarrant County school trend. So this is third week in a row that our school dashboard is all red. Primarily driven by COVID-like illness. That's been trending up for the last few weeks.
Excuse me just 1 second. Did we lose Commissioner Allen? She's still there. Okay.
And we have 550 cases in schools in the last 1 month, and this includes public and private schools. Our contact tracing efforts with the help of our school nursing teams and their staff is going well. We've identified 3,368 contacts. And the reason I say this is that we're a little cautious of what's going to happen because major school districts are opening this week. Overall assessment remains that we need to use caution ahead, even though on the dashboard the recommended learning measure is virtual learning. I understand that schools they had plans to reopen, so they're starting to reopen. What this means is data is now giving us caution, and those schools need to be ready. If they start to experience outbreaks, they need to have plans ready to switch to virtual learning. And if there are schools that are still deciding what they should do, then the recommendation certainly is there. Again, non-binding guidance, but that's what the data is telling us. It's supported by trends overall in Tarrant County. As you can see, we had a huge decline in hospitalizations, but if you just sort of zoom in over the last couple of weeks, we were flattening out, and now we're actually starting to turn up in hospitalizations as well. That is supported by our case trend. We were declining, and then for the last 3-4 weeks, we were sort of flatlined, and the week before, we're starting to turn up. Same thing with our positivity rate. It's been a little unstable back and forth, but we've hovered between 9 and 11%. Right now, I think we're at a 9.5% today. We had a data glitch over the weekend with the national system. They were undergoing maintenance. So this morning we'll revise the dashboard, but I think we're at a 9.5% positivity rate, which will be a sort of a flat line for the last 2 weeks. COVID-like illness trend, again, for the last several weeks has been trending up. And it goes through its undulations, a little up, a little down. But overall, the trend has been up. All in all, the school dashboard, even though it was designed as a guidance for schools and parents, it's actually doing a pretty good job summarizing what's happening in our community. So we find that as an added tool to give a composite picture. Again, data shows caution, and that's what we all need to be doing. And again, the message is the same. There are very limited tools we have available to fight against COVID-19, and a few of them are, staying home as much as you can, staying 6 feet away from others, continuing to wear masks everywhere, continuing to wash your hands throughout the day, and just follow good social hygiene, and then avoid group gatherings. Large gatherings do tend to have situations that occur from them. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Vinny. I did have a question for you regarding some of the new efforts that you shared earlier in the presentation. So, as you know, I've brought up multiple times about kind of equity and access. Are these options also?
Do we need to see her? Commissioner Allen, we need to see your picture up here. as you're making comments.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Okay. No worries. So, Vinny, I just wanted to make sure that for these new efforts, that those are accessible to folks in our community who perhaps English is not their first or preferred language.
Yes, so our testing website typically does translate into Spanish as well. We have people available on the hotline that can do Spanish translation, Vietnamese translation. We have those in-house. And then we have language line available that can, if somebody needs another language, we can get a third-party language line on the translation line on the call and help those folks out with getting the forms filled out.
Sure. So I'm saying, but specifically for these new efforts, like with the QuickBase, and am I going to visit those links that you put in the presentation? It leads you to an app. So I don't know if maybe within the app that you can change your preferences, or that's really what I was getting to. Is that an option? That
I will have to go look and see if that is available in different languages. If not, certainly folks can give us a call. The language line, translation option is available all the time. So the number to call again is 817-248-6299. That's our hotline number that we've been using throughout the pandemic. And it goes the same. If you have any problems, internet access issues, just don't want to fill out a form online, can't get through the form for some reason or it doesn't work, give us a call and we'll walk you through it. We'll fill it out on your behalf and create an appointment. You just give us the information on the phone.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Any other questions?
Vinny, before I'm fixing to kind of make a change here for a second. As I was going through the audience participations, I came across one that wished to make a comment during the public hearings, which we had a few moments ago. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and they're not in the audience. They've asked for it to be read into the record. And so I'm going to read that one into the record. At that point in time, I will ask the court members if they choose at this point in time to reconsider the vote that we took. And so I'm going to do that before I move into the public comments with regards to your area.
Yes.
If that's, Mr. Manius, is that okay?
Yes. If it's one where we've taken a vote on a particular action, we had 3 of them we took a vote on 2, I would suggest that we do right now, what we do is a vote to reconsider that particular item. That way it'll open up the public hearing. You can place that information in the public hearing, close the public hearing again, and then do your vote again.
Okay, then can I have a motion and a second to reconsider item 8, B, and C? That's the plans for preservation of the archives records.
So you have a motion.
So second, I guess, for the purpose of
Okay,
reopening
we
it
have
to
a
hear the
motion.
public comment, right?
Yeah, I think we have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, so motion passed to reconsider. I will now reopen the public hearing on item 8, B, and C. So that reconsideration was for both of those items. And the individual wishing to make a comment, but he doesn't wish to address the court, but he wants to register the following opinion, and it's Mr. Devin Pipes. He said, I am strongly opposed to the county clerk preservation plan. Previous preservation attempts have destroyed access to documents. All of the records have been preserved, have not been made accessible. So why are taxpayers paying for the preservation of original documents when we are not allowed to view them? Additionally, the plan calls for the purchase of microfilm equipment rather than having the microfilm records digitally preserved. which can be done for free. I support the district clerk's plan. His office does it right. That is the comment. Are there any other comments? Then I will close the public hearing and will ask the court for its recommendation on items 8, B, and C.
Move approval of items 8, B, and C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Vinny, I apologize, but I noticed that, and I wanted to just go ahead and get that taken care of at this point in time before we were to move forward. And with that, now, Mr. Manius, normally I think this is when we go into public comments, but do you have anything you want to do prior to us going into comment?
No, sir.
Okay. Then with that, we will move into our audience participation. We have two folks who wish to be called. The first is Janet Jackson. So I will make the call at this point in time.
Hello.
Ms. Jackson, this is Judge Whitley. We have reached the point in our meeting for audience participation. Please go ahead and state your name. You have 3 minutes to make any comment that you wish to make.
Yes, my name is Janet Jackson, and I'm calling on the public comment today. I'm going to start with reading a couple of verses. Micah 2:1-3. Woe to those who devise iniquity and work out evil on their beds. At morning light they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand to do so. They covet fields and take them with force. Also, they seize them, so they oppress a man in his house, a man in his inheritance. And the restrictions that we are following with COVID at this point are doing exactly that. We have elected all of y'all through different precincts to stand in office. And that is not being done. There have been plans to devise evil. And so I'm going to start with these questions. When did Tarrant County start receiving PCR tests from the U.S. federal government via FEMA? Why did the World Bank start shipping PCR tests in 2017 to the USA with the product code 382200? 31 million tests were sent out to the United States from the World Bank. Third, we're doing these tests, but there is no set standard for measuring or diagnosing coronavirus. There's no set standard because coronavirus has never been isolated or purified. If it has never been purified, how can we define what a negative test or a positive test is? Further, the CDC has stated that there is no asymptomatic spread. So someone that tests positive but is asymptomatic is not spreading the virus. You have a false positive test.
2 minutes.
How many of the old batch tests were added to today's numbers to keep our positivity rate high? How many data glitches can we continue to have? This seems to be a common occurrence with the Tarrant County Department of Health as well as the Texas Department of Health. If it seems to be either deceptive with these constant issues occurring in communicating data. It also seems to be a way to manipulate and drive fear for the public. And the last verse I'm going to end with is Romans 1:18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress truth in unrighteousness. Because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. And still again, I'm going to call out Vinny Tenasia. He's not a doctor. He does not have a license to practice medicine. This is fraudulent to present him as a doctor. That is deception.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Time is up.
All right.
Have a good day. Next is R. Rogers. Is there Rebecca? Is it?
Hello.
Ms. Rogers, this is Judge Whitley, and we're at the point in our agenda for audience participation. You had sent in a form saying you wish to address the court. So now is the time. Please introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes to make any comments you wish to make.
Great, thank you. It's Rebecca Rogers. It is encouraging to see some leaders like Senator Bob Hall, Judge Chris Hill, and Dr. Hotze doing their own research. It is abundantly clear that too many elected Hello?
We're here.
Hello?
We are here. Continue, please.
Address the court. So now is the time to introduce yourself.
She's listening to the court, not calling.
Yes, I'm trying to speak. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You need to turn down the video at this time.
Okay, thank you.
And we're going to go ahead.
Encouraging.
Just a second. We're going to go ahead and start the 3 minutes over again and let you go. So please continue.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Rogers. It is encouraging to see some leaders like Senator Bob Hall, Judge Chris Hill, and Dr. Hotze doing their own research. It is abundantly clear that too many elected officials, including those in Tarrant County, are using the guise of COVID to implement draconian edicts and enjoy ruling like tyrants, meeting their constituents with force. Over and over, the leaders of Tarrant County have only relied on what is being force-fed to them and are too complacent to actually do their own research. Is this the kind of legacy you really want to be remembered for, creating COVID concentration camps when numbers don't require such measures? Discussions of raising taxes during a recession, not only the state, but also local governments have caused due to creating policies based on misleading data. Do you want to be remembered for not standing up for the people that elected you into office and being complacent by ignoring blatant evidence that show the CDC and local health officials have been wrong for months, yet still pushing draconian measures when evidence shows that it is not needed? Well, Mr. Whitley, that is exactly what you and your commissioner board will be remembered for. You and your councils have continued to perpetrate fraud on the citizens of Tarrant County by making public policies based on Vinny Tenasia's recommendation. Judge Whitley and Vinny Tenasia have led the public to believe that he is a doctor. However, researching his background, he has an MMBS from Manipal, India, which equates to a pre-med undergrad degree in medicine. He has not received an MD or a PhD certification in either India or the United States. He went on to get his master's in public health from Eastern Kentucky University, which again does not give him the right to practice medicine. And exactly what he is doing by providing the Tarrant County Commissioner's weekly recommendations on mask wearing, testing, and COVID vaccine recommendations. By all accounts, to me, that is fraud. He is a medical administrator, and that is all. I decided to reevaluate the dashboard. I found it quite interesting that Tarrant counts
2 minutes.
show new cases, but fails to include current active cases. They often fail to show positive tests as well as all new known cases are not real numbers and manufacture statistics based on possible infected patients, but not confirmed positive test results. All numbers show cumulative totals of confirmed and probable cases over the course of 7 months. The probable cases are not confirmed cases and mean nothing. It's just another way to inflate the numbers and confuse people. The death counts are not just those that died from COVID, but could have an underlying health issues and died due to those health issues. The hospital's capacity key metric has nothing to do with COVID patients. As it does not differentiate between those that are using up bed capacity and ventilators associated with COVID. Those numbers encompasses any person that may be in the hospital for any type of illness. So I decided to explore the inflated numbers for Tarrant County. On Monday, September 28th, recovered cases 43,275, deaths 653, active cases 170, and confirmed 45,851.
Time's up, Ms. Rogers.
Okay, thank you.
Have a nice day.
You.
Next is Sherrod Perry, followed by Robert, I believe that is Burks, followed by Judith Shelton.
Your Honor, as we wait for Ms. Perry to come forward, or Mr. Perry to come forward, would like to ask that anyone who is addressing the court please speak directly into the mic, because we want to make sure that all of our court members in the audience hear what you're saying. So please speak loudly and speak in the mic.
Okay, again, I'm waiting for Sherrod Perry, followed by Robert. Again, it looks like Bukes, followed by Judith Shelton. Is there anybody coming from? Well, he will.
I think Sherrod Perry is requesting a phone call.
Well, my record shows that he's present. Now, maybe he left.
Mr. Robert.
Well, let's talk about this guy first.
Well, he said in the issue he indicated he wanted to be called, but then they said he was here, but he's actually outside and wanted to be called again. So I don't.
Okay, so we'll try to call him.
And then Robert is up after that.
Hello?
Mr. Perry, this is Judge Whitley. We're at that point on the agenda for audience participation. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes to make any comments you wish to make.
Okay. My name is Sherrod Perry, and here's my statement. So in the past few months, we've seen what I like to call a rise of both heroes and heels. And heel, that's not a word you hear too often, but it's one definition of heel is somebody who is self-centered or untrustworthy or contemptible. And I have a long list of heels that I can name throughout this pandemic. One such heel is Tedros Ghebreyesus. He's the head of the World Health. He's the head of the World Health Organization, and he is not a medical doctor, as I pointed out one time. In fact, he's the first non-medical doctor to ever hold that position. And one of his quotes a few months was that there will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. So that's a very grim picture. And it's like he knows something that the rest of us don't know. And another heel that I'm going to name is Bill Gates, who you see him on TV everywhere. And one of his quotes has been, that things won't go back to truly normal until we have a vaccine that we've gotten out to basically the entire world. So he's pushing this vaccine that he's going to profit billions from, and he's not a medical doctor either. So my issue is this. As you know, earlier this month or recently this month, the CDC released some estimates for the survival rate for COVID-19, and it's actually better than the estimate that they released a couple months ago. I mean, they're saying that for ages 0 through 19, it's like a 99.997% survival rate, and that's for basically children. And then for other ages, like it's like 99.98%, 99.95%.
2 minutes.
So, okay. So, what I'm saying is it seems to me that again, that all of these measures are way out of proportion to the threat that we are facing. And it's not just me saying that, because again, I'm not a doctor, right? But I'm getting my information from doctors and researchers such as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Simone Gold, Scott Jensen, Rashid Buttar, Milt Wachowski, Didier Raoul, John Ioannidis. I could go on and on. There's a whole lot of doctors, lawyers, and scientists who've all told us that the response to COVID is completely out of proportion. The mask mandates do not work, and that if this leads to a vaccine down the road, that's just going to cause more problems and cause more damage than that's worth. And it feels like this whole plan is leading us to mandatory vaccines. It's leading us towards contact tracing that we do not need. And I'm looking ahead. I don't believe any of those measures are necessary. So I just want to put y'all on notice that is not a plan that I would ever be in favor of. I'm not in favor of the mask, and I'm not in favor of vaccines.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Robert, if you please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes to make comments, and you'll see we now have us a little clock, so the clock will give you that. So,
okay, my name is Robert Bucher. I'm going to again read the Texas Health and Safety Code, Chapter 81.082, Administration of Control Measures. Line D says a declaration of public health disaster may continue for not more than 30 days. A public health disaster may be renewed one time by the commissioners for an additional 30 days. After that, we must do away with it. But yeah, here we are. Once again, second time around going through that. Now, Title II of the Health, Subtitle D, Prevention, Control, and Reports of Disease, Chapter 81, Communicable Diseases. 81.003, definitions, line 1B. Designated infection control officer means the person serving an entity's designated infection control officer under Section A. Physician appointed as a health authority under Chapters 121 Local Public Health Reorganization Act or the Health Authority designee, or line B. A physician appointed as a regional director under Chapter 121 Local Public Health Reorganization Act who performs the duties of a health authority or the regional director's designee. Health professional means an individual whose vocation or profession is directly or indirectly related to the maintenance of the health of another individual or an animal. Line B, duties require a specified amount of formal education and may require a special examination, certification, or license or membership in a regional national association. Did some research, called the Texas Medical Board, called the certifications. Mr. Neha has none of those. And yet he's making decisions.
Mr. Burton?
Yes, sir.
One of the things that you didn't research is who the public health authority is in Tarrant County. It's Dr. Colquith, an infectious disease physician for over 20 years.
And where's he at? Not in the courtroom. Or she, where's she at? I'm sorry.
Well, she's working.
No, she's not here, though. So that's who should be speaking to us, not this dude. Okay.
He is our public health director, and we will choose who speaks to this.
Yeah, somebody that doesn't know anything at this point. Okay, I'm going to refer to a...
You've got 1 minute left.
34-year-old Tarrant County inmate dies from unknown medical emergencies, and this is the 9th death from Tarrant County. And I was appalled to see what the statement was made and reported by WFAFA. And this says, and this is paraphrased by you, this is a lot, and that's something I know the sheriff is concerned about, Judge Glenn B. Whitley said, but I believe the sheriff has done a very good job of keeping our jail as free of COVID as possible. What does that have to do with that? That's distasteful. Very distasteful. Very distasteful to even mention that. That made it political. And you said you're sad to see the COVID be political, but yet I read that. That's distasteful. And I'm going to close out on this. The Article 1 Bill of Rights, freedom and sovereignty of the state. The Texas is a free, independent state, subject to only the Constitution of the U.S., and the maintenance of our free institutions and the perpetuity of the Union depend on the preservation of the right of local self-government, which we're allowed to abolish them. It's what we should do at this point.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Judith Shelton. Judith, after Judith is Shannon Paul, and then Amanda Tosca.
Judge, before I start, I would like to ask the court, since many people have the same concerns about Mr. Vinny Taneja, if he's a licensed doctor in Texas or not. Just because I tried to do a research and couldn't find that he's a licensed doctor. And, you know, I've seen him give medical advice to you guys. So there's a serious issue with this court taking medical advice from someone who does not practice medicine.
We're going to start in 3 minutes. Okay.
Is that something you can answer? No?
Well, again, from that standpoint, Vinny is our public health director.
Yeah, and I have no concern with him.
Well, just let me finish. You've asked your question. Let me answer. Mm-hmm. He is our public health director. He's not our public health authority. Mm-hmm. The public health authority is, as the gentleman right before you mentioned, mm-hmm. Is required to be a licensed physician. That is Dr. Colquith. She is an infectious disease physician and has been for many years. That is not a requirement of our public health director. Vinny is who we appointed as the public health director, and he comes and he gives us his advice. We are not patients, and he is not giving us medical advice.
Okay.
So, you know, we're very comfortable with our public health director.
Yeah, I understand.
And very comfortable with our public health authority.
Mm-hmm. My concern was...
Your time is beginning.
Okay. Last week, after I addressed the court, there were statements made specifically to me by this court without giving me a chance to respond. I would like to take my time this week to respond to those statements. The statement was regarding the mask order that is the only order in place in Tarrant County by the judge and only applied to the inside of businesses. There was also a diatribe on the requirement for a medical exemption in writing and the need to take the order more seriously, which we can only imagine means that you would like to see stricter enforcement of your order. This mandate, which goes above and beyond the small amount of flexibility afforded by the governor's order, seems to indicate that this county government cares less about the freedoms and choices of its constituents and care only about enforcing the will of this court onto the citizens. It was stated that in this room there were areas where 6 feet of distance could not be maintained, but conversely, there are also areas where 6 feet can be maintained. I will say it is more likely that in the county buildings where you have dictated that masks are required except under written approval, there are more areas where 6 feet of distance can be maintained than areas where it cannot. Why be uncompromising with your mandate? Why dictate what the citizens' choice must be? If you want it, you can make a section of this room mask-free and a section for mask. You could limit mask required areas to only places where 6 feet will be impossible to maintain,
2 minutes.
but you will not. I will ask, where in the governor's order does it state that a written medical exemption is needed in order to not wear a mask? I will also ask, where in the order for Tarrant County does it say that a written medical exemption is needed? It is not specified in either order, nor should it be enforced by this or any other court in the county and state. I also would like to read that in the governor's order of April 27, it was expressed that local officials cannot require individuals to wear face masks to ensure that individual liberty is not infringed upon by government. Thanks.
Thank you. Judith, no, that was Judith, excuse me. Shannon Paul.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I'm coming to talk to you about the mask mandate. We all know that the majority of the data that was released about COVID-19 has been a farce at best. Mr. Taneja calls the data goofy, polluted, and it has been a complete debacle from the CDC down to the local agencies, bumbling tests, reporting false data, changing it later, and so on. And I do applaud you, Judge Whitley, for at least asking questions about the numbers the last couple of weeks, being skeptical of the data, and for saying that you hope they clean up the mess. Yet, knowing all of this, you still have a mandate for masks. I'm not going to bore you with the decades of scientific data, numerous randomized controlled trials, or peer-reviewed data showing there's no statistical or measurable advantage for wearing a mask. I've heard anecdotal evidence presented by Mr. Taneja about how since masking Tarrant County, the number of cases have dropped. Anecdotal evidence is not scientific evidence, however, and can be twisted to fit whatever narrative we so choose. Booker T. Washington stated, "A lie does not become the truth just because it's accepted by the majority." We've been lied to repeatedly from the media. Either you have been deceived into believing the lies or you're complicit in them. As the mandate, it's cowardly, tyrannical, and irresponsible. It's cowardly to force hardworking, tax-paying, job-generating business owners to enforce this order for you. You've pitted the business owners and the employees against their customers. You've put them in difficult circumstances, as if this year has not been a detriment to their businesses already. The mandate's tyrannical because you strip the rights of businesses and individuals to choose for themselves how to run their businesses or care for their bodies. You have said, "It is my order. It is my opinion that counts with regards to this order." I believe this is overreach at its finest. More than that, it's a violation of my conscience. My God commands me not to bear false witness against my neighbor. Wearing a mask is a lie, and I will not perpetuate that lie.
2 minutes.
I only wear this mask today because I believe it is the duty of we, the people, to hold our government accountable for how it exercises its authority over us. It is irresponsible because you have no goal, no metric, no number to end this game. In all appearances, you're flying by the seat of your pants. You've stated there are no health risks from mask wearing. It's merely an inconvenience. Yet I feel reluctant to believe that any of you have studied this at great length. A blanket mandate for individuals, indirectly, but yes, still a mandate for individuals whose medical conditions or mental health you have no idea about, is absolutely irresponsible. Benjamin Franklin said, "A nation of well-informed men who have been taught to know and prize the rights which God has given them cannot be enslaved. It is in the region of ignorance that tyranny begins," and I believe this is where we are. I pray that the Lord gives each of you His wisdom, His discernment, His courage to do what is right, and the strength to be humble enough to do it. And one parting quote from Thomas Jefferson, "When tyranny becomes law, rebellion does become duty."
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Ahmed Otaska.
Hello, my name is Amadia Tosca. I stood before this court for many weeks and offered several suggestions on how to create revenue versus to an invasion of our rights. Several weeks ago, Vinny stated that his professional accumulated data was goofy, causing negligence and carelessness to the people of Tarrant County. While his numbers were inaccurate, the mask mandate has caused confusion, destruction, fear, hate, and division amongst the residents of Tarrant County. Vinny's goofy, inaccurate, accumulated data left Tarrant County residents in governmental duress caused by the government. This COVID/flu is no different than tuberculosis, in my opinion. Canada residents have access to tuberculosis treatment while the United States residents don't. Failure to treat tuberculosis causes the further spread. Why hasn't the U.S. made tuberculosis treatment mandatory upon contraction to prevent the further spread? Our health is clearly not the courts, Vinny's, governors, or any other authority's problem, and y'all are in no position to act as if you do so. Also, there is no reason to test for a specific disease that you have no symptoms of. That doesn't even make any sense. This clearly is a money-making scheme. Please end this mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elaine Miller, followed by Jody, followed by Brian Hans, followed by Doug Hines. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Eileen Miller, and I'm a 41-year resident of Tarrant County. My husband and I are small business owners. We are taxpayers, and we are registered voters. I'm here today on behalf of my children, my grandchildren, and future generations of Tarrant County residents. In March, 2 weeks may have seemed prudent, but 7 months later, here we are, and it's obvious that this mask mandate is not about health and safety. As always, it's about money, power, and control. The pandemic response has been used as a social and economic weapon against the people that it was supposed to protect. The purpose of the Constitution is to limit the power of the government, not to limit the people. Medical decisions and the wearing of masks should be a decision not in the hands of the local governments or lawmakers. It's a decision between the individual and the physician after carefully weighing the benefits, the risks, and any alternatives. I will not repeat the statistics that support my position, but I am here to ask you some questions. What do you want your legacy to be? How do you want history to remember you? Under your leadership, scores of businesses have closed. Seniors have died alone and isolated in nursing homes. Crime and suicides have increased dramatically. Churches have been asked to close. All of this despite a 99.5% survival rate. You continue to hold Tarrant County residents hostage with masks.
2 minutes.
I prayerfully ask you to do the right thing and cross the finish line. Rescind the mandate for the benefit of Tarrant County residents and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Jody, followed by Brian, followed by Doug. Good morning, Jody.
Good morning.
Good
I have
morning.
a question before we start, if I may. I'm just curious, first of all, how the retailers or business owners are able to put up a sign on their door that says this is law, and how your order, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but how your order supersedes the governor's order when he clearly said if we cannot wear the mask, we don't have to wear the mask. But when we go up to these doors, they're saying it's a law. It's not a law. Even the Grapevine police that came to my door 2 weeks ago because they were concerned about my health because of a phone call I made to Care Now, I asked them, is a mandate, an order, a requirement, a suggestion law? And they said, absolutely not. And then he asked if he could take off his mask while he talked to me because he knew how upset I was about it. And I said, yes. So I asked him, if you took off the mask in front of me and you're 2 feet from me, that tells me you're either not afraid or you don't believe in it. And he said, Jody, we just have to simply play the game. I go, so you know it's fraud? He goes, absolutely. 2 cops.
3 minutes going to start.
So I'm just curious how these people are able to put that lie up there, that it's law when it's not law, because you've got people running to their cars to go grab a dirty mask to put on. And I've asked people, even in front of Quick Trip, why did you just do that?
We're going to start your 3 minutes now.
Okay. As you know, I've been here before several times. I've lost my job from the most conservative place there is in the city of Grapevine. Unbelievable. They want all my medical history now. I'm not going to do it. But I went back and I was looking at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram back in April 2020. It says the Tarrant County received approximately $210 million from the federal government to cover costs related to COVID-19 under the CARES Act, and Fort Worth received approximately $158 million. If I add these totals up, it comes to $368 million. If you divide that by the approximate, and my children were not taken this way, I'm just going to talk about this. If you divide that number, $368 million, by the approximate $85,000 for each child taken via CPS, it equals 4,329 children taken from a parent to fund this disaster. I find that very appalling. Then I hear that you have to spend this money by the end of the year. I don't know why you have to spend it. Is it because you're going to go get more children? I just don't get it. So this, to me, means you're going to do another extension in order for you to fulfill the expectations for these funds. You also stated this money will provide us with a life vest while we wait for a rescue ship. I'm curious if this statement you made is because you wrote it in front of an Admiralty flag or in this Admiralty court, or do you really think you yourself are a rescuer? I haven't witnessed anyone here being a rescuer for me. I've never seen any groceries appear on my front step or bill being paid after losing my job because I cannot wear a mask. I've also never had any help from anyone here in obtaining a job. I'm curious how child trafficking in the courts to fund this CARES Act via the Title IV monies is providing a life vest for us all.
2 minutes.
I see this entire nightmare as a chance for the government to traffic more children, put masks on them, and assist pedophiles to snatch even more children, as mothers that still luckily have their children won't be able to recognize them in a park, school event, or anywhere in public since other children are wearing the same submission device. If you're so concerned about public health, why aren't you concerned about the 5G towers that are surrounding us all, that are causing headaches, cancer, brain fog, all this, and that will react to these vaccines? I also want to know, since Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick just mentioned he wants us to wear armbands, if Vinny comes up here in a few weeks and says, I believe armbands are good, are you going to be okay with that? I'd like to know. Because I moved here from Iowa because of the corruption there. I didn't move to China. I thought I moved to Texas. So I'm just curious if that's going to be the next thing.
I'm going to make just a couple of comments. One, the December 30th deadline is placed on us by the government. The mandate with regard to the masks was to basically say that folks inside of businesses, employees and customers will wear the mask. And I did say there was an exception for health reasons. Each owner of any business can determine who they want in their business. No shirt, no shoes, no service. Now what I guess they're saying is no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. They have to make the determination as to what they're looking for in the way of health, and again, that's their decision. This court decided that within the county, our policy with regards to inside of our buildings, where if you were going to claim that for health reasons you could not wear the mask, then we required a communication from a physician, not stating why, but just stating that for health reasons, this individual should not wear or could not wear masks. That's all we've requested. But we've had some that come in with little statements and smiley faces, and that's not acceptable. But we felt like, okay, if somebody has that, then we need to just see a letter that says for health reasons, and we let them in. That doesn't mean that somebody else, that somebody across the street, that some business or some other group may require something different. That's their decision, and that's where that comes from. The mandate is not a law; it's an order, and it's something that we're given the authority to do, and I've done. If my order was not in place for inside of businesses, the governor's order that says you will wear masks is still in place.
That's not what's on their door, is what I'm saying.
I can't help what they put on their door.
Are you prepared for lawsuits that's going to cost all these taxpayers a bunch of money? Are you prepared for that?
I hope that nobody will file a lawsuit. That's certain.
I'm going to have to. A lot of us are going to have to because we're without a job.
Well,
how are we going to eat? Does
okay,
anyone here
just a
with
second.
muzzle on, give a damn?
Okay, we're through. Good night. Next is Brian, I believe, is it Hans?
It's Haynes, sir.
Haynes.
Can I ask for clarification on your previous statement, sir?
Yes.
You stated that a business owner has the right to decide if they are requiring their employees and the people who enter their business to wear masks.
No, didn't say that. What I said was...
That's why I asked for clarification, sir.
They have to require that. That's in my mandate or in my order. What else they choose, they can choose to be stricter. They cannot choose to be any more lenient than what is in the order.
Thank you.
Your 3 minutes are beginning.
Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Haynes. I'm a licensed physician and chiropractor. I've been practicing in North Fort Worth, Alliance area for nearly 7 years. With all due respect, at what point are our leaders of the community going to do what they've been elected to do? You have been selected to look out for our overall well-being of the community, and at no time have I or any of your other constituents given over the responsibility of our physical health to you. That is the responsibility of the individual. What we do ask of you is that you govern and lead so that we may all prosper. How's that been going lately? The National Institute on Drug Abuse reported in June that overdoses had increased by 30 to 40% amongst our young people. Calls to the National Mental Health Hotline have increased by 891% as early as April, and still this drags on. The CDC stated in June that 25%, 1 out of every 4 young adults, has suicidal ideations. The American Journal of Public Health reported in June 2011 that from the year 1928 to 2007, that's a long time, for every 1% increase in unemployment, there was a corresponding 1.2% increase in the suicide rate at the same time. What does all of this mean? Studies from the National Bureau of Economics Research, the CDC, and the World Health Organization conclude that the economic fallout from government overreach could end up killing 10 times more people than COVID-19. Perhaps you don't know what this actually looks like for the people in your community. Let me give you a few examples. I spoke yesterday with a couple in their 50s who own a business. They've been under my care for the last 7 to 8 months. They've seen great gains in their health. They're feeling better. They're more active. They'd like to continue to see their health improve so they can spend more time with their grandchildren. One of them stated, the husband, that he's able to spend more time with his grandchildren, without pain and discomfort because of the care he's received. But due to the fact that his business has all but shut down, they can no longer afford to receive the health care services that they need. That's on y'all. As his pain returns, his anxiety and stress will increase. That's been proven by science. He will have more stress because of this. I'd like to consider this for a second. You yourself or a loved one, a young woman in our community, is a rape victim. They've already suffered with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and now the lockdowns. Every time she wears that mask, she's tormented by the memories of having her rapist cover her mouth. And every time she leaves her house, she has to decide, does she put that mask on and relive those traumatic events? Or does she deal with the hatred and the restrictions and the rejection that she feels when she tries to walk into a grocery store? Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Hines. Now, he was not here earlier. Maybe he is coming.
Morning, Judge Whitman, Commission. Doug Hines, Keller, Texas. Took a couple weeks off, glad to be back. A couple weeks ago when I was in front of this group, I talked about the fact that COVID is over. I'm here back 2 weeks later to tell you that COVID continues to be over. It is no longer a serious threat. It was never that serious of a threat. But whatever it used to be, it's over now as a serious threat. The predicate for the declaration of emergency is that it's a serious threat. There's no statistics helping, and we're going to go over the statistics if I have time. But first, I just want what the good doctor just talked about. There's another article that came out about Children's Medical Center. Cook's Children's Medical Center reported a few days ago has reported an alarming rise in juvenile suicide patients, nearly 1 per day in August. That's 29 suicide attempts. Vast majority of these are young girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years of age. For the year, it has been 192 such patients, more than double the number admitted during the same period 5 years ago. And as a father of 3 girls, that concerns me greatly. That is not a good thing. Those are the real things that are happening from this scamdemic lockdown that we're under with respect to bars and with respect to the mask mandate and the other restrictions we have. But let's look at the statistics. 2 weeks ago, I stood here and we were at 608 deaths in Tarrant County out of 2.1 million people. That has grown by 53, apparently, according to Dr. Tehea, Public Health Director Tehea. That is a very, very minor. Every death is sad. I wonder how many other deaths there are from all kinds of other things that have nothing to do with this COVID scheme. Statistically, the morbidity rate remains exactly the same 2 weeks later. It's flatlined. 0.031% morbidity rate now, 0.030 last time. Now, last time I also talked about the difference between us and South Dakota, where no restrictions are at all. I'm here for a little update on that. We talked, I think Dr. Vinny talked about, or Director Vinny talked about South Dakota skyrocketing. Here's what's happening in South Dakota. 2 weeks ago, they had 16,801 cases. Now they have 21,738.
1 minute left.
246. That's a 2.46% of their population is affected. That's identical to Tarrant County. We're at 2.47. Identical. No masks, no restrictions, identical. Their morbidity rate from COVID, from those that have been infected, is 184 deaths 2 weeks ago. That's 0.021. 2 weeks later, yesterday, it's at 218 deaths, 0.025. Hardly a huge spike, I would say. And that's a little bit less, still less than ours at 2.032. And they have no restrictions. None, zero. Now let's look at Florida real quick. You've heard what Governor DeSantis did in Florida. Entered that order a couple days ago. No more individuals, no people can be now prevented in the state of Florida from individually working or from operating a business. All restaurants, bars, and every other business is open for business at 100%. And he flips the script. In Florida, if you want to restrict and go down from 100%, You, as the business owner, have to have a economic impact statement and a bell like this, but I'm just kidding. So then you have to explain why it's necessary. I say we're over. Let's get this thing done. Let's declare victory and go home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Dr. Haynes, you need to pull the mask up over your nose if you're going to stay in the courtroom. Thank you. Ms. Gunn? Good morning.
Good morning. Real quick before I started, I wanted to commend you on your creative idea of how to move money around to fix that funding problem this morning. That was very great, very creative thinking. Thank you. And I wanted to make a quick suggestion on the Section 8 housing. Instead of trying to find more landlords in more opportunity areas, higher opportunity areas, maybe they could use the opportunity zones and try to encourage more opportunity where the homes already are. It's a good idea. Anyway.
Thank you.
Take a breath. You ready? Okay.
Take your time.
All right. As several have pointed out, the children are the least vulnerable to this virus and the most vulnerable to many other things. And many psychologists have documented how these masks are hurting our children. They're leading to infections, illnesses, suicide, and long-term psychological damage we will be seeing for years to come. The children are our future leaders, and we are making them afraid of their fellow man, afraid to go outside and play. Most play places are still closed, and we're making them more and more afraid of interaction with others. Tarrant County Commissioners Court has sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States as well as the state constitution. And Galveston County Judge Mark Henry said covering your face while in public is being recommended by national and health local authorities. While we encourage you to consider these recommendations for your own safety and the safety of others, I will not be mandating it because I believe it's unconstitutional to do so. Just as critical as getting our economy back up and running, it is important that elected officials uphold their oaths to defend the Constitution and ensure individual freedoms remain intact during and after this pandemic, end quote. Many governors, like Governor Abbott, are being sued. There are many court cases for these, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some local. Whether or not the language in these lawsuits is proper to be brought before the court, I don't have that knowledge, but I do understand the definition of a public health disaster. It must pose a high risk of death or serious long-term disability to a large number of people and create a substantial risk of public exposure because of a high level of contagion. A virus with a 99% recovery rate and few or rare long-term side effects does not qualify as a public health disaster. On top of that, the president announced...
1 minute remaining.
On top of that, the president announced the release of the rapid test, and he himself said that cases are not the metric we need to look at. We need to look at hospitalizations and deaths. The cases is not going to get us the information that we need. This weekend, I'm sure you're aware of the scripture. If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, I will hear from them and heal their land. This weekend, 50,000 believers gathered on the Mall in Washington, D.C. to pray for our country. Which side of history do you intend to be on? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gunn. Blanca?
Thank you, Judge Whitley, for listening to us. I come from Dallas, where we go and protest as well, and we can't even get into the courtroom. So we Thank you for that opportunity and for letting us call in, another opportunity that we lack in Dallas. But you still have an opportunity to opt out of this madness, and that's what we're all begging you to do. I know last week I was a bit emotional. A very close friend lost her baby, not because of COVID, but because of the fear of not being able to go to a hospital and all that COVID has done. I've lost a best friend who was beaten to death beyond recognition. I've lost a cousin that died from an asthma attack because she couldn't get to the hospital in time due to all this madness, all this political madness. By now, with all of the information that we've gotten, it's quite obvious that this is not a pandemic, but that it is a plandemic to destroy our nation, to destroy our economy, to terrorize the conservatives of America. But we refuse to bow down to the knee of tyranny, of communism, of laws and mandates that are against our Constitution and against the Word of God. We do not need permission because we have the Constitution that our forefathers bled and died for, so that you and I can stand here and present our cases to you, sir, and to the court. We say enough is enough. I met a beautiful lady the other day from Laos, and I cried when she told her story. She said, Blanca, my mother died having me because of all this mess. All of this communism is the same thing that they did in Laos. All of this taking down the statutes, all of this forcing medical, all this free medical, and all of this madness. Everything came back to her as she was trying to explain it to me. Blanca, this is communism at its finest, funded by Soros, funded by the globalists, targeting those that are most vulnerable, our elderly and our minority communities. I say no. It is time that we wake up. It is time that we take into consideration all of the evidence, all of the facts, all of the data, and say no, Vinny, no, Dr. Whoever, you are wrong. And instead, taking in and considering the doctors, and I applaud Dr. Brian, I don't know if he's still here, for coming forth, and we need more doctors, and we need more attorneys, and we need you to take a stand for freedom, for justice, and for righteousness. In Jesus' mighty name, I plead the blood of Jesus over Fort Worth and Dallas. It will not succumb to communism. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Blanca. Mike Utzman. Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Whoops.
Members of the court here. My name is Mike Utzman. I'm out of Euless, Texas. I want to first thank you for allowing the citizens of this great county to avail ourselves of the democratic process. This is what America is all about. You've heard facts and everything, and you had this run up you so many different times, it's not even funny. And I understand when we first started this several months ago, nobody had data. So we had to play the part of the being in the Alamo. We now have the proper data. We now can have the Battle of San Jacinto and free Texas once again. Texas is about standing up, not laying down. We never have. We never will. You got a gentleman up here today telling you that your cost for your housing assistance is fixing to double. A lot of it has to do with the unemployment rates in this county and across this country. Unlike your counterparts in Washington, D.C., y'all don't have a printing press sitting in the basement. If we don't open back up, we're going to end up with bread lines because you can only have so many people do so much work at one time. That's the unfortunate part. My sympathies go out to the family of the gentleman that was lost after 20 years of service to this county. Death is never a good thing. But unfortunately, from the time we come up screaming out of our mother's wombs, that is the final chapter. Our only guess is we don't know when. Only God Almighty knows when we will die. Some very early on from various diseases. Now we have COVID, AIDS, cancer. I mean, the list goes on and on. We are all aware of this. The people who die in car wrecks on a daily basis in this country.
1 minute.
Thank you, sir. But the bottom line is this board and this group of individuals started this meeting with a prayer, signifying that this is still a Christian state, a Christian county. And in true believers, when you're covered in the blood of the Lamb, everything that happens to us, from our prosperity to our sickness to our death, is controlled by God Almighty. And none of us can do anything about that. This isn't going to change that fact. When God says it's our time, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That concludes our audience participation requests. Mr. Manius, at this time, do we want to move into the agenda, or do we want to go ahead and recess for closed session?
Why don't we go into closed session at this time, and then we'll come back.
Okay, then at this time, I'll recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under centers.
Okay. Members of the court, we can now go back to the administrator's section and go to item number 1. This concerns various declarations of disasters. I'd just simply like to point out that the governor on September 17th issued 2 additional executive orders. I think they're executive orders 30 and 31. The first one, basically the GA 30, loosened up some of the occupancy issues on various businesses, and somewhere at 50% now. Some of them have been increased 75%. That I've included in your court communication the order itself, if you would like to read that. GA 31 dealt basically with hospitals and their abilities to do elective surgeries, and open that up a certain amount, meet different type of requirements. And so once again, they are in your book also, and I'll refer you to that document if you have any questions or any information, or seek any additional information on that particular item.
Tarrant County had always been exempted from those elective surgery.
That's correct. That's correct. So if there's no other questions as it relates to that particular one, we could now move into item number 2. This concerns actions or possible actions on activities that the COVID virus has on the impact or the effect of Tarrant County citizens. We're going to start by asking Guidehouse. Are you on the line?
Yes, we're here. This is Rachel.
Okay, Rachel, if you'll go ahead and start your presentation.
Sure. All right. Let's see. So beginning with slide 1, we'll begin on the project status slide with week 921 to 925. And I'll just run through some of these. We continued our ongoing communication with stakeholders. We continued to monitor grant opportunities that would be a good match for the county. We continue to monitor new Treasury guidance. And I just want to give a quick update on what that means for this week. Treasury OIG released new guidance last week that resolved a significant hurdle for the county and municipalities. Prior to last week, Treasury was requesting that governments document and justify that public health and public safety employees were performing what they call substantially different and substantially dedicated work, which has to do with the amount of time and the type of work that an employee is doing in response to COVID. But the guidance also stated that these roles were presumed to have met these thresholds. So
I can't understand most of what you
Rachel,
Rachel, hold on just a second.
you've got a great echo going on in your shop. We need to figure out how to do away with the echo because it's hard to understand you.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Lonnie, if you'll also raise the volume, please.
Is it better now?
Not really, but maybe if we raise the volume. Are you using your computer or your phone?
I'm using my computer.
It's not any better.
Okay. Lonnie, go ahead and raise the volume up a little bit more.
She may have to be here. I don't know. What phone is she coming in on? Is she coming in on?
She's coming on a GoToMeeting.
Okay.
Okay, Rachel.
I'm not hearing it on my end, if that helps at all.
Can't hear it at all.
I can hear her. I just can't understand what she's saying.
Okay, let me clarify what I said. I can hear her fine on my end.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Rachel,
GK, how does it sound now? I turned my volume down, so I hope that might help.
I think that does. Just be able to just speak loudly if you can.
Slow down.
I will. Okay. So we were talking, I just wanted to give a brief overview about the change in guidance that came from Treasury OIG, and I bring this up in reference to the task around continuing to monitor new Treasury guidance. Last week, OIG released new guidance that resolved a significant hurdle for the county and its municipalities. Before last week, Treasury asked the governments document and justify that public health and public safety employees were performing what they call substantially different and substantially dedicated work in response to COVID-19. But this put quite a big administrative burden on, especially the municipalities that received CRF funds from the county. And it was confusing because the guidance also stated that these roles were presumed to have met these thresholds. But as of last week, Treasury OIG removed that requirement that governments provide documentation that prove that public health and public safety roles were substantially different and substantially dedicated. There are still some requirements with the HR and payroll records. These are fairly straightforward. And so what this means is that as a result of this change, it will be easier for governments to use CRF funds to cover payroll expenses for public health and public safety roles. And that is great news for the cities in Tarrant County as well as for the county. So this was a good update that we got this week.
So what that update basically said was that there was a prior requirement that they had to be substantially committed. We're talking about law enforcement, fire, and also health. Treasury has relaxed those rules, and we will be able to utilize more of our funding, and the municipalities can utilize more of their funding to fund those three elements.
That's right. So also continuing down on that week of 9/21 to 9/25 list, we continue to review county COVID-19 expenditures to support the ILA distribution program and the NGO assistance program, and to support the FEMA project worksheet. Moving on to the right with our current key activities, we developed a resource to help cities and towns receiving county CRF funds to determine which Treasury cost category to use for their expenses. We developed and delivered an office hours presentation for these municipalities and reviewed the Treasury payroll guidance that GK and I were just talking about earlier. We drafted a new reporting template for NGOs to use for their monthly reimbursement requests, and we are finalizing that today with the county. We drafted updated county guidance for municipalities based on these payroll guidance changes, which is currently being reviewed by the county and should be finalized soon. We also updated the Q&A document for municipalities based on questions raised during the weekly office hours. We drafted an updated newsletter for cities and towns receiving county CRF funds with important resources, including the new guidance, and the county emailed that yesterday. We are currently working with the county to develop an attestation form for NGOs to certify that their clients are impacted by COVID-19. We are currently working with the county to finalize two presentations for tomorrow. One is, and I apologize if there's a typo, it should be September 30th. The ILA office hours of the September 30th NGO webinar. Both of those are tomorrow. Moving on to the week of 9/28 to 10/2, I'll just do very quick here to avoid repetition. In the upcoming week, the Guidehouse team will continue to move forward with a number of ongoing tasks with an emphasis on providing support to the FEMA PW, the ILEA distribution program, and the NGO assistance program. Our areas for discussion today will be the pillars of focus in the county spend update. I apologize, the program strategy update that you see in there, in discussion with the county, we decided to hold off on this until next week when we can have a bit more information and present a clearer picture for the court. Any questions on this slide? If not, we can move on to slide 2. This slide is pretty similar to previous weeks. I'll just be very brief here. The county continues to conduct testing sites, to issue small business assistance grants, to issue rental assistance and NGO assistance awards, although note we have an update here that the NGO awards all of them have been approved at this time, and also reviewing eligibility for ILEA distributions. Any questions on this slide? If not, we can move on to slide 3 and we'll start talking about the expenditures, with the grants. So here we have an overview of the county's grants. There have not been any new awards since last week, so in total there are about $229 million in grant funds that have already or will soon be received by the county. And to be clear, these are what we call the multiple grant funds in the later slides. These are the ones, all of the grant funds that have been received by the county separate from FEMA PA and separate from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Or I apologize, CRF is included at the top there, but the other ones on here are what we call the multiple grants. We'll talk about those in a couple slides. There have been new expenditures against these grants, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Are there any questions on this slide? If not, we can move on to slide 4 and talk a bit more about the expenditures. So here we have our overview of county expenditures, the total amount of invoiced and encumbered expenditures of $114 million. I want to note that this total is as of September 24th and does not include, I understand, there are a number of NGO assistance awards and small business assistance awards that are going to be issued, if not already, then very soon. So these numbers will continue to increase as more distributions are made from the pillars and the CRF programming. Any questions on this slide? And if not, we can move to our final slide, slide 5. And this last slide brings together the county's revenue and expenses. Beginning with FEMA PA, the county has submitted its first project worksheet, of which 75% is allocated to FEMA PA. And separately, FEMA requires that all of its recipients put towards the total amount a 25% local match. So we'll see that in the CRF, the relief fund pie chart. But in the FEMA pie chart, we have that 75% of the project worksheet is here seen under the earmarked section. In addition, we estimate that the county has about $17.8 million in additional eligible expenses. And note that FEMA PA funds are not capped, and so the funds remaining here is just an estimate of what we expect the county might spend, but it is not an upper limit on what the county is allowed to spend. Moving on to CRF, the county has spent $80.7 million from its direct distributions. The expended amount will further be adjusted in next week's report as the county has begun shifting some of its eligible expenses from the T8000 fund to its CRF fund. And this is just, the T8000 is where, before deciding whether or not an expense would be covered by FEMA or be covered by CRF, this is sort of the temporary holding spot for it. So the county has been moving more of its expenses to the CRF fund, determining that these are going to be CRF expenses. And so we'll see some increases next week reflecting that change. Also shown here under the eligible expenses is the 25% local match that I mentioned earlier. Separately, we estimate that an additional $5.4 million is CRF eligible, and the county still has $94 million in budgeted funds, leaving an estimated $27.8 million to be allocated. Finally, the county has been awarded about $19 million in additional federal funds. These are the multiple grants that I mentioned earlier. These are separate from FEMA and CRF. And the county has spent about $4.1 million, leaving $15.4 million yet to be spent. So in total, the county has spent $114 million, earmarked $108.8 million, and there are $30 million approximately remaining. Are there any questions on this slide or on our presentation?
I do, Rachel, I have a question on, this is just a follow-up to the call that I had with you all yesterday about the state allocating resources to rental assistance. Can you just repeat that summary that you shared on our call?
Sure. So it's our understanding the governor announced on Friday that the state of Texas would be setting aside about $170 million for rental assistance specifically. And part of that would be, I believe, $4 million or so would be set aside for legal aid related to rental assistance. We don't yet know. We know that this is funded by the state's CARES funds, but we don't know exactly how they're going to be dividing the funds quite yet, or what exactly the program operations will look like. But we have seen that they want, or their intention is to have local governments administer these funds and this programming. So likely what we would see is some additional funding going into existing rental assistance programs. But like I said, we haven't yet seen the details as the program was just announced on Friday.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments for Guidehouse?
One of the questions that I had kind of posed is whether or not there was any chance that we could use money from the CARES funds for flu shots. Have we heard anything more on that?
Yes, we have, and I'm sorry, we actually sent you an email, but you must have already been in court this morning. So we did confirm that CRF can be used for flu shots. However, it would just be the incremental cost. So if the county, for example, on a typical year purchases 100 flu shots, and it wants to increase its purchase and have a total of 200 flu shots, the incremental cost would be eligible to be covered by CRF, but the typical amount that the county would spend would not be eligible to be covered by CRF.
So if we were to take a position that we were going to try to offer free shots to anyone, then we could potentially spend whatever we potentially spend on that.
Yes,
right now we're doing it for county.
The understanding is that you would be keeping people out of the hospital with flu, wanting to keep those flu-related cases down at a time when you're also trying to, fight COVID cases, and so this is seen as an eligible cost.
So we currently provide free flu shots for our employees, but also the Public Health Department provides flu shots in all of its clinics. So I don't think
for free.
If they're unable to pay, but if they have insurance, Mr. Tanaja.
So the county employee flu shots are actually paid for by the county through the HR department. Yes, sir.
I know that.
Yes, sir. And then for the public, we have subsidized programs. So there's the Vaccine for Children program, where the vaccine is free, and under the law, we're allowed to charge an administration fee, but that's not a barrier. If somebody doesn't have the ability to pay, we are supposed to waive that off. And then similarly for adults, there's an adult safety net program. Again, the vaccine is free. By law, we are allowed to charge an administration fee, but again, that's not a barrier. There are various discounts available, and if somebody doesn't have the ability to pay, we don't turn people away. But most people do pay that fee because it's very nominal. For Vaccine for Children program, it turns out most of the time to be $8. And for the adult safety net, it turns out to be $15. And the big difference is this is the first year where we're expecting the flu shot to be available through the adult safety net program. Normally, so far, that was not the case. So this year, we're expecting that vaccine to arrive in November, but the other vaccines, the private purchase and the Vaccine for Children, we're receiving now.
So when you say the cost of the vaccine was free, does that include the injection?
So the charge for administering the vaccine is not included, but all the supplies, the actual serum, it's coming free through a federally subsidized program through the state.
So the only thing that there's a cost to is for the administration, and that's just basically giving you the shot.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So,
and there are statutory limitations. For example, on the Vaccines for Children program, the max anybody can charge, I believe, is $13.34.
I'm not worried about that.
Yes, sir.
I guess what I'm saying is we've got a lot of CARES funds money left right now. And then I believe that if we said to the nurses around this area, we're gonna provide the vaccines for free. We need some help in vaccinating folks. We're gonna set up these places to vaccinate on X day, or here's a place where you can come in and get a free shot. Now, if you have insurance, we may ask that you provide us with that or not. But I think we really ought to make sure that there's no barrier up for us to be able to offer that flu vaccine this year.
I think what we would like to do, since we just heard that it was a CRF funded opportunity, let us come back to you next week, because there's a lot of different things we want to make sure you're aware of. The fact of just getting the vaccine itself, and how lucky we would be to get more vaccine than we currently have. That's not something that Vinny and I have talked about in great detail. It's in some detail. But let us bring you a report back next week for you all to look at that thing.
And then we've got the flu shots for the county employees this Thursday and Friday.
Yes.
To the extent that we can make flu shots available to the public at low or no cost, we ought to do it.
And that may be to the point where we take a group and we just hit our older adults, retirement centers, places like that, and just roll in there and have the people come and get the shots. But that'll be what you're going to tell us next week.
Yes, because you can imagine if we say we're giving free flu shots and we have 2.1 million people in the county, and 25% of them decide they want to come get a flu shot. We may be overwhelmed, so we may need to look at partnerships.
We may have a COVID problem.
Yeah, but let us come back, and we need to take a good, hard, deep dive in it, and we'll come back to you next week on it. So, are there any other questions for Guidehouse? Okay, so I just want to very quickly give you somewhat an update on our 4 pillars. You're going to hear more about it from Kristen as it relates to the NGOs, as it relates to the small business assistance. Renee, would you like me to give them the numbers, or would you like to? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to approve 134 additional grants this week, which will result in a total of 2,126 grants for a distributed amount of $17.1 million. And so we're coming to the end, basically, of those initial grants in the first phase. When we talk about testing, we have continued to run a large group. The NRH2O is still our biggest site, and it doesn't seem to be diminishing any. We're also, as you know, we don't report necessarily the numbers that we have with the city of Fort Worth. We are getting those. I saw a report this morning, but we'll try to incorporate that into this report beginning next week. On the rental assistance, as your report shows, we've received 1,059 applicants. We've approved 491. We've dispersed, or will be dispersing, for a 3-month assistance of about $1.7 million. Internally, we're trying to beef up our staffing so that we can turn these applications out faster. We need to make sure that we've done and have the data that the auditor's office is looking for in order to do that. That's why we have a new part-time employee. I don't know if anybody has recognized her, but she is helping us on the testing in being that second set of eyes that she's probationary. Okay. But she provides that secondary set of eyes to make sure the data is as clean as we can hand it off to the auditor's office.
Welcome back,
Hi.
Debbie.
GK. I did not see who that was. Based off of my view, I can't see the person's face at all. Who is that?
That's Debbie Schneider.
Oh, very good. Hi, Debbie. Nice. Okay, great. Great
I thought
to
it was
see you.
my time.
Yeah, we were all wishing.
Thank you.
Anyway, Kristen is going to be, the next item Kristen is going to handle, and it'll talk about the NGO program. You know, and obviously we've made the distributions on to the municipalities. One thing that I do want to point out, because your municipalities may be talking to you about this, we have a weekly telephone call for Guidehouse, and our staff, Russell, leads that effort with the city managers and their personnel, and that has been very beneficial to the cities. And this information that we heard earlier about the loosening of the use of COVID funds for payroll, that's going to have a big impact on the cities also. So with that, that's our report for item number 2. If the court doesn't have any additional questions, if we can go to item number 3, this concerns the NGO program, and Kristen is going to do that.
Good afternoon. I'll give you a brief update on the overall program, followed by item number 3. At the conclusion of item number 3, assuming approval, we will have awarded $6.394 million to the initial round of applicants for the NGO program. Of the 150 received, we have provided awards to 67. A majority of those, or a good share of those, I should say, also had a funding component for the city of Fort Worth, and those have been forwarded on. Those amount to another $5.4 million. The city of Fort Worth, as I understand it, is slowly moving through those. They have awarded their first 6 and plan to make another set of recommendations in the next week or so. If you don't have any questions about this chart, I'll move on to item 3. Okay. It's requested the Commissioners Court approve agreements with Cancer Care Services, Carter Blood Care, Catholic Charities, Foundation Communities Incorporated, Girls Inc. of Tarrant County, Harvesting International, Housing Channel, Methodist Justice Ministry, Metro Sports Fieldhouse, Mission Central Metroplex, North Texas Special Needs Assistance Partners, Project 4031, RISE, Services of Hope, and 60 and Better for the distribution of CRF related to the NGO program. The total amount combined is not to exceed $904,973.20.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank Kristen for the work that she did on the Housing Finance Corporation over the last couple of days.
Members of the court, we can go to item number 5. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the 2020 holiday season meeting schedule that is attached to your court communication.
I thought we'd already done that.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6 concerns final payment to Dispute Resolution Services of North Texas as it relates to services that they provided since October 1 through April 30th. There are some findings that we need to have recorded in the minutes, and those findings can be found in the court communication itself. This basically will pay them $262,500, and staff is requesting approval.
Thank you for finally getting this taken care of. I move approval.
Second. And ditto.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 7, we're requesting that the court approve agreements between Tarrant County and Trinity Metro via Transportation, Inc. and Arlington Handy-Tram to provide free public transportation for voters on election days, October 13th through the 30th and November 3rd, 2020.
Move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes. I've got discussion. So I know in the past that we were working hopefully to include the Grand Connection in this, but there were some issues regarding their funding sources that they use to operate the Grand Connection. So it what happened with all of that, and how come Grand Connection isn't included in this, the list for this election cycle?
Commissioner Allen, I did reach out to Grand Connection, and they declined to participate. I shouldn't say that. They did not respond to my requests to participate this year.
Okay, thank you.
Also, in your packet, you should have the results of last year's. There you go. I'm sorry, March's program. I don't believe I was ever able to give an update because of COVID. So we spent $6,137.75 and provided almost 3,000 trips.
Kristen, one of the things that I think, and I mentioned this to Hyder, on election day we might try to anticipate that if there's a long line at a particular location nearing the 7 o'clock hour, that we might look at the possibility of taking a few of those people to the next nearest vote center around in some sort of a bus or something like that, so we could clear that out. Now, it'd have to be real close or people aren't going to want to get on the bus and do that, but y'all just connect about that, please. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Mayes.
If we can move to item number 8, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court consider and approve an exception to the travel policy as it relates to within-region travel for Justice Peace Precinct 2.
That was Precinct 1 on the agenda.
That's correct. It is Precinct 1. You're correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
Where is this in Granbury?
It is, the training is in Granbury, and it's for two. It's for Judge Swearingen and Ms. Espinosa.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please, did we vote on that last motion?
I didn't. That's what I was just thinking about. I don't think we did.
We didn't vote. Did we vote on that last? Okay. Yeah, I know. King's X. We're going to go back and vote on item number 7. We had a motion and a second, so we're just going to vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Item 7 passes unanimously. Now for item 8, we had a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We can go to item number 9. We're requesting that the court approve interim funding for the DA's office as relates to the Intimate Partner Family Violence Victims Associates Group.
Victims Associates, is it advocates?
Advocates. I am sorry. We have some duplications in our court communications. So yes, it's advocates.
Move for approval.
Second.
Why are we approving interim with our own department?
So what happens, this is a grant, and it's for the state.
Okay, if it's a grant, you're just telling me we ain't got the money yet.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that part, so I understand. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
On item number 10, we're requesting that the court approve a research collaboration agreement between Tarrant County and the party that's indicated in your court communication.
The Madzu.
To do what kind
Move for approval.
Go ahead, come on.
So what this is, it's a specialized piece of equipment that they're providing for us, and we're some of the data is going to be handed back to that company to do research.
What company?
Part of the research, and at the end of the research, we will get a heavily discounted price on that equipment.
Is that from Shimaduza?
That's it. That's what I said.
Yeah, but that don't mean
fishing poles.
That don't mean it's right. Did we get a motion or a second yet?
I made a motion.
We don't have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Again, what company was that? Commissioner Allen?
Yes to Shimadzu.
She just put us in ours.
Well, I'll give her a chance every first Tuesday if we ever get back to it. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Then finally, on item number 11, we're requesting that that the Commissioners Court. Okay, this is really good.
Receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements.
No, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an amount not to exceed $55,000 from the District Clerk's Liability Fund for refunds relating to the cause stated in your court communications.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson, I believe you have a motion.
Receive and file Tarrant County financial statement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file Tarrant County financial statements. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Helen?
We are seeking approval of the special purpose budgets containing 84 separate funds.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. You got out of there easy on that, didn't you? Come on down, Hunter.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Hunter.
We have one item today, and this is the request for approval of an extension to the amendment of the contract between Tarrant County and SOE Software Corporation, SIDL. This is the application we use to post election night results on the internet for the public. It's just an extension of the contract.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Kina?
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Item number 2.
Yes, thank you. We're asking approval for an out-of-class pay extension for the tax office as described in your court communique. Mitch Burgess is requesting an out-of-class pay extension through October the 9th. We're estimating a very minimal cost to the general fund of about $71, so that's big money. We are anticipating that the $71, approximately $71, will be offset by salary savings.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
No, some discussion.
No.
I think I'm confused.
Was that a no?
There was discussion. I just couldn't get to the mute button fast enough. So you said, Tina, that the cost was $70.88?
Yes, I said almost 71, but the actual cost is $70.88.
Okay. Very good. Okay. I'm ready. Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 3, we're asking the court to approve an extension of project employment for Probate Court 1. Judge Ponder is requesting a 1-year extension of a project employee he has who is serving as the court's staff attorney. If approved, this extension will be granted through October the 28th of 21. The annual cost to fund this incumbent will be approximately $87,673. That does include fringe benefits. And the cost will be split between the general fund and the probate contribution fund, if approved.
Move approval.
I second.
We have a motion to second. Is he attending the Tom Wilder School of How to Keep a Project Employee on Forever?
I don't. No, this situation is different. His predecessor, Judge King, actually would have interns come in on an annual basis, and so he would rotate out interns. What Judge Ponder, his preference is that he's had this individual on staff for some time, and so he, rather than rotate her off and rotate someone else on, his preference is to extend her employment by a year if you all approve, and then I think he's hoping maybe next budget cycle to request this person in a full-time capacity, but that is yet to be determined. So this is a bit different.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. So I saw that the cost of this position is being split between two funds. Is there a reason why it couldn't be totally funded by the contribution of probate?
I don't know the answer to that.
The annual revenue that's in that fund would not support 100% of the salary.
Okay. Thank you.
Please tell the judge that we'll be watching him.
Yes, sir. I'll relay the message.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And our fourth and final item, I hope, we're asking the court to approve plan changes to our wellness program for 2021. In August, the PEBC board had its monthly meeting, and one of the items that we discussed was the transition of our wellness program from a participatory program to an outcomes-based program. And so that the board then indicated that it was interested in taking a step in that direction. And what an outcomes-based program does is it's a little bit more rigorous than just a participatory program. So what specifically we're looking at adding to our wellness program in 2021 is that we would like to include a feature where employees would be, if they want to participate and earn points, their blood pressure, we'd have to measure it at 130/80 or lower, and that would enable those individuals to earn 50 points towards the 300 points that are required to receive the $300 wellness reward. So for those employees who may be in a situation where they're not able to attain 130/80, there will be alternatives made available to them, like through a wellness coach, so that if they meet certain criteria as outlined by the coach, then they can still earn the 50 points. And as I indicated, this is just one step in that direction, and I'm anticipating in future years that we'll be taking additional steps, again, to make our wellness program a little bit more rigorous than it is currently. Some additional or some added features for next year as well is that we'll be adding 12 fitness challenges. Those challenges will be split between the 5 PEBC member groups. There is a cost, of course, to anything that you add to a program. However, those costs will be offset by credits that we've received from United Healthcare. And one final thing, I just want to remind all employees that we do, again, have a wellness program. We encourage employees to participate. Employees can participate as well as their spouses can actually earn points towards the wellness reward of $300. And the only requirements is that the employee participate in one of our medical plans, the PPO, or the high deductible health plan. So I'll take questions if you have questions. If not, we're asking that you accept these changes or approve these changes effective 1/1/21.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So let's say, for example, that somebody's got the high blood pressure. How often do they have to have that checked in order to qualify for that? Same thing with cholesterol. I mean, high blood pressure is one thing. That's just, that's.
I don't know that we've
cholesterol is a lab test now that we've got to perform, and there's going to be a cost associated with
Right.
that.
I don't know that we worked out all of the specifics of that, Judge, and if Robin is familiar with any steps that we've made in that direction. Okay. So we're working through those. My question before I left the office was something similar, and do we have any specifics yet on the challenges as well as specifics about the blood pressure measurement? So we'll be working with the other entities to come up with what that looks like. And to your question specifically, how many attempts do you have, I guess, to get your pressure to 130/80 in order to qualify?
Are we just doing blood pressure this first year? Or are we doing blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, things like that?
Yeah, the biometrics have been in place, and that's, and Robin's stepping forward. That hasn't changed. But the one thing, again, in addition to the fitness challenges that will be in place, will be the specific, the blood pressure reading, again, with the goal being 130/80. Do you have anything else?
No, there are no other standards that must be met this first year, just the blood pressure. There'll be consideration for other standards to be added as we go forward in future years.
And I guess in the board meeting, I didn't understand that part of it. I thought we were going to do more than just blood pressure.
No, sir.
Is that our biggest concern?
Well, there was discussion between using blood pressure or BMI, and
Ew, that's the one that tells me I'm obese every year.
and that's one of the challenges with BMI. And so the committee did decide to go with the blood pressure initially, and then we'll, as I said, consider other parameters going forward.
The judge makes a good point on that blood pressure reading. I've had occasions when I have driven to my doctor's office through heavy traffic, having vigorous discussions with people on my telephone on the way in, and gotten a high reading when I got there. And 20 minutes later, it was much, 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 much lower.
Yes, sir. I had the same exact thing happen to me a few weeks ago. I won't tell you what my vigorous discussion was about, but yes, you are correct. I think many of us have that experience, and so we will work through, or as we work through what this looks like, how it shakes out, and what it actually takes for an employee to qualify. Of course, we'll keep you all in the loop to make sure that you're aware. And Judge, if I could just add one additional thing. You all had some discussion earlier about flu shots. And so I wanted just to add just a little bit of information for new employees or individuals who perhaps have not participated in our flu shots in the past. I think it was mentioned already that flu shots will be given out this Thursday and Friday, so that's October 1st and 2nd, from 8 to 3 o'clock. And they are typically given out in 5043, which is this conference room right behind you. And there was an email, a countywide email that was sent on September the 15th, Tuesday, September 15th. So employees look for that if you're planning to come for your flu shot, because there is a consent form that's attached to that email that you'll need to bring with you in addition to your county badge. Wear your mask so we can see your smiling face under your mask. And also pack your patients, because we are going to be enforcing social distancing. So everybody come prepared. We're going to be social distancing, and we're going to be giving out flu shots at no cost to employees.
Wait, and Tina, there are still days where they'll be given out at the sub-courthouses, right?
Yes, ma'am. Public Health will be working on a schedule, and we'll be communicating that to employees as soon as we have it for our outer-lying locations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As regards free or near-free flu shots, we ought to look at spouses and dependents that are on our health plan first.
For spouses and dependents who are not, whether they're on our health plan or not.
Spouses
and I did mention
dependents.
badges. Bring your county badge as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Is that the end of the discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And just in case you're forgetting what we were voting on, that was the plan changes for the wellness program.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I forgot. Thank you.
Chris?
Good afternoon, Your Honor, Commissioners. Commissioner Allen, very good to see you back. Appreciate that. We have one item for your consideration this morning. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court consider the approval of a service level agreement between Tarrant County and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service pertaining to information technology services. This SLA will replace the recently expired Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU between us.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Chris. Vinny?
Good afternoon. I have 5 items for your consideration this afternoon. The first one being we're requesting approval to authorize purchasing to issue a purchase order for drinking water service. This was related to one of our new buildings, the Quorum Drive location. There was some water delivered there while they were still trying to figure out the details on how to get the PO issued.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Second item, we're requesting approval for U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Public Health Associate Program agreement to detail a federal employee. Typically under this program, they provide people with at least a bachelor's degree, sometimes with a master's degree, and they're free to us for 2 years. They cover the cost of their salary. The benefit for the folks is that they actually get field experience working at a local or a state health department. So it makes them more palatable down the road for employment. And then, we get the benefit of having a trained individual. All the costs are covered by the CDC. All we need to provide is space and computer equipment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Third item, we're requesting approval for a COVID-19 testing master services agreement between Tarrant County, doing business as Tarrant County Public Health, and Private Path Diagnostics, also known as Let's Get Checked. This is the home testing kit I was mentioning about earlier. It can be used at drive-through locations. It's not limited to that, but it comes packaged individually, so if you decide to mail it out, it can be done.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next item is we're requesting approval of a memorandum of understanding between Tarrant County Public Health and the Department of State Health Services for the provision of confidential data extracted from their designated death records. So the history of this is, DSHS, they started using death record data to enumerate all the COVID-19 related death cases, and there's been a sort of a discrepancy between what we're showing and what they're showing, and we've been asking them to share that information with us so we can reconcile the data. So once this MOU is approved, we should be able to get that data extract from them.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
I do have one question. Vinny, is this just related to COVID mortality data?
Yes, that is correct. That will be the first thing that we will be looking for, and if the agreement allows to get other information, we will receive and utilize that as well. But the intent for this agreement was the COVID-19 data.
Okay. Well, it just makes me think of some of the challenges with getting infant mortality data. So that's what made me ask that question. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. That's it. That's all I have, brother.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Final item for your consideration is the request for approval of a letter of agreement and grant contract between Tarrant County and Texas Department of State Health Services for funding related to an integrated HIV program for health departments to support ending the HIV epidemic in the United States. Background is last year we saw the federal government push for ending the HIV epidemic, and in the first round of funding, we received about $70,000 to hire a plan coordinator for ending the HIV epidemic plan. Now this is sort of the second round of funding. It was part of our grant originally, and now they've sort of pulled it out into a separate grant fund. This will be about $637,000 of new grant funding that will go towards this program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Come on down, Jack. If they had just all gone to the same professional team, we could have had LSU against the NFL.
Do I have 3 minutes or left this afternoon? This is for
You have
Travis and
three, you have
Candace.
less.
I'm paying off a debt. I was going to wear this sweater. I put it on last night. I was sweating, so I wore a Georgia tie. The Bulldog team did quite well, both of them, this last Saturday. 34-10, they eventually beat us. Go Dogs. We have 4 business
So
items.
who's the person you just did that for?
Both Bulldog teams won, I think.
Moving right along.
Yes. We have 4 business items for your consideration this afternoon. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for RFQ 2021-02A for juvenile residential services. Our recommendation would be to award to the 8 vendors as shown in court communique, the amount of $2,400,000. If approved, we're also seeking contract approval.
Moving on to item number 2. Do I have a motion or a second?
Move
Yeah.
approval.
Johnson made a motion. I seconded it.
Okay, good.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-87, bid for the HVAC equipment replacement for Precinct 2 maintenance facility. Recommendation be to award to Infinity Contractors International, the amount of $50,529. If approved, we're seeking contract approval, acceptance of their payment bond.
Move for approval with thanks.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is a bid award recommendation for RFP 2022-03. This is our annual contract for on-site language interpretation services for the Public Health Department. Recommendation be to award per the terms of contract, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in court communique. We're also seeking contract approval from the court.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can these people be used in voting also?
Yes, sir.
Good. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Last item, number 4, is a housekeeping item. We're seeking approval from the court to pay an invoice, the amount of $104,760 to GXP Partners. This for maintenance, went into effect August 1, and the purchase order has not been issued yet.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay.
I have a question. Oh, was someone else speaking? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask what happened here.
Chris, you want to talk to that?
See, I don't have to ask. Thank you, Devin.
We do have a very robust system that captures all the 167 contracts we have now and gives us automated renewals. However, one of our former employees in that particular area of our business services, when they entered this particular item, they fat-fingered 2020 as 2022. And so it never came up as it would normally do. So it's an exception.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I believe there's an interlocal agreement by Commissioner Johnson.
I have several, and I can't see the DA's office, but have these been approved by the DA's office?
It has, Commissioner.
He said yes.
I move approval of item 901A through J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any appointments this week? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a second motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We've already done our briefing items. Are there any announcements? We're closing today in memory of Justice Ginsburg. With that, we stand adjourned.